In this video, we are going to talk about the laws of exponents. So before we start, we're going to do a little bit of theory just to get started. So let's take an example, let's say 2 to the power of 3. So this as a whole is called a power. Then we have the big number, which is called a base. And we have the small number, which is called the exponent. Now, when we have an exponent, what that now when we have an exponent, that means that the base is multiplied the number of exponents. So, for example, let's say for 2 to the power of 3, that equals 2 times 2 times 2. So you can see we'll multiply 2 3 times, which is where the exponent comes from. Now let's start with the first law, which is called the product of powers. Now this law applies when you multiply two powers. So let's say you have x to the a times x to the b. This law states that we can simplify this by having x to the a plus b. Now let's do a quick example just to understand this a bit more. So let's say we have 2 to the 3 times 2 out of 2. Now using the first law, we can simplify it by having 2 to the 3 plus 2, which is 2 out of 5. Now, if we want to see how this works, we can also just put it as a multiplication. So let's say this equals 2 times 2 times 2. So times, and we have this 2 times 2. Now if we count, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we multiply 2 5 times, which is 2 exponent 5, which is the same answer as we got before. Now let's do a second example, this time with x to the 4 times x to the 3. So we're gonna use the first law, and we're gonna have x to the 4 plus 3, which is x to the 7. So in this case, the base is x, but that doesn't change anything. You just use the first law. For the last example, we are going to use coefficients. So we're going to have 3 times x to the power of 2 times 4x to the power of 5. So when you have coefficients, the rule is, so let me write it down. Coefficient, the rule is just to multiply them together. So you just follow the operation in the middle. So in this case, we have 3 times 4, which is 12. And then for the power now, you have to watch out, you have to be careful. You have to use the first law. So we do x and then 2 plus 5, which equals 12x to the power of 7. Now let's talk about the second law, which is quotient of powers. Now, this law, for the last law, we used the multiplication between powers. This time we're going to do the division between powers. And what this law says is instead of doing a plus, you do a minus between the exponents. So let's do a quick example just to see how it works. So let's do 5 to the power of 6 divided by 5 to the power of 2. So we have 5 to the power, so we take the first exponent, 6, minus the second exponent, 2. That gives us 5 to the power of 4. Now let's do a second example, which is Now let's do a second example, which is 7 to the power of 5 divided by 7 to the power of 3. So we follow the law, the second law. So we do 7, then we take the first exponent, which is 5, 5 minus 3, which is the second exponent, which gives us 7 to the power of 2, which is 7 times 7, which is 49. Now let's do an example with coefficients. So let's say we have 12 times x to the power of 8 divided by 4 times x to the power of 3. Now, as I said before, for the coefficients, we just look at the operation in the middle, which is a divide in this case. So we have 12 divided by 4, and then we apply the second law to the exponents, to the powers. So we have x, and we have 8 minus 3. That's right, we're following the second law. It's a division, so we take the first exponent minus the second exponent. That gives us 3x to the power of 5. Now let's talk about the third law, which is the power of a power. So let's say we have x to the a, which is then power to the b. Now what this law says is we can convert this into x to the power of a times b. So let's do a quick example for this law. Let's say we have 3 to the power of 2 to the power of 3. So now we can apply the law and we'll keep the same base, but then we're going to multiply. So we're going to have 2 times 3. We're going to multiply these two exponents, which gives us 3 to the power of 6. And this is our final answer. Now let's do another example, this time with x to the power of 4, which is then all to the power of 5. So we apply the same law, we keep the base, and then we're going to do 4 times 5, which is going to give us x to the power of 20. Now let's do an example with a coefficient. So we have 2 times x to the power of 3 which is all to the power of 4. So when we have a coefficient, we have to be careful and we need to apply this exponent to the coefficient, and then we can apply it to the power. So we're going to have, basically we're going to have the coefficient to the power of 4 times the exponent to the power of 4, which if we follow the third law, it's going to look like this, right? So I'll just repeat myself. When you have a coefficient inside, if you have an exponent that is applied to a coefficient, you just apply it on its own, and then you can apply it to your power. So you'll have 2 to the power of 4, that's 16, times x to the 12. Now let's talk about the fourth law, which is the zero exponent rule. So if you have a base which has an exponent 0, that always gives 1. So let's do a quick example. Let's say we have 5 to the power of 3 divided by 5 to the power of 3. Now if we follow the second law, that gives us 5 to the power of 3 minus 3, right? We remember that the second law says that if we have a division between two powers, we just subtract the two exponents. That gives us 5 to the power of 0, which, if we follow the fourth law, is equal to 1. So this law is pretty simple. Let's do another quick example just for fun. Let's say you do something and you have 1,000,000 exponent 0. This it also gives just 1. Now let's talk about the fifth law, which is the negative exponent rule. So let's say you have, for example, x, which is our base, exponent minus a. This rule states that this is equal to 1 over x to the a. So we always, let me say, drop it down with, you understand? And we then keep the exponent, we just remove the minus sign. So let's do an example real quick. Let's say you have 2 to the power of 2 divided by 2 to the power of 5. That, if we follow the second rule, or second law, that gives us 2 to the power of 2 minus 5. That gives us 2 to the power of minus 3, which we then follow the fifth law, which we have 1, always put 1. Then at the bottom, we do the base, and we put the exponent without the minus sign. So this is also equals to 1. Now let's do another example, which is a bit funkier, which is 2/5 and minus 2. Now for this, we are simply going to switch these together because of the minus sign. So what we're gonna have is 5 divided by 2 at the 2, which we can then apply to the 5 to the 2, which is 25 over 4. Now, as always, if you want to get good at math, you need to practice. So these are a couple examples that you can try by yourself, and don't hesitate to put your answers in the comments. See you next time.